Yeah. So for last week we covered up to verse number 10 in second chapter. In the first 10 verses, what happened is Arjuna gave further reasons on why he doesn't want to fight. He expressed his indecision to continue the fight. He he was very confused and almost lamenting, put his bow down, and finally asked Krishna, "Oh Krishna, you are the only one who can give me some kind of understanding at this point of confusion for me. I have I have lost all composure. I'm completely indecisive." He says this. Now I'm confused about my duty and have lost all composure because of miserly weakness. In this condition, I'm asking you to tell me for certain what is best for me. Now I'm your disciple and a soul surrendered unto you. Please instruct me. So that was what Arjuna said finally. And then he also said, I can find no means to drive away this grief which is drying up my senses. I will not be able to dispel it, even if I was a prosperous, unrivaled king on earth with sovereignty like the demigods in heaven. So I'll not be happy even if I get the unrivaled kingdom like the demigods in heaven, like Indra, Varuna. I'm not going to be happy. After that, he said, I shall not fight, and fell silent. So at this point, Krishna, smiling in the midst of both the armies, spoke the following words to the grief-stricken Arjuna. He was smiling because suddenly a friend turned into a disciple. Arjuna and Krishna were like friends until now, of the same age, and they were referring to each other by name. But at this point in time, suddenly a friend became a student. So that's why he's smiling, and now he continues conversation. Sri Bhagavan Vacha. So this is an important section from 11th onwards. Lord Krishna will be speaking directly and addressing a lot of confusion and misunderstanding of Arjuna in the mind of Arjuna. So he says this first. Sri Bhagavan Vacha Asocyan Anvasocastvam Prajnavadamscha Bhasase Gatasun Agatasun cha Nanusochanti Pandita. The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, while speaking learned words, you are mourning for what is not worthy of grief. What is Arjuna mourning for? The bodies of his grandfather and guru, Dronacharya. Those who are wise lament neither for the living nor for the dead. This was the first statement of Krishna regarding Arjuna's state of mind. Says, while speaking like a wise man, you're speaking like a wise man. You're speaking learned words. You're quoting scriptures, Dharma Sastras and Artha Sastras. You're quoting all of that. But what you're mourning is for the body. Those who are wise lament neither for the living nor the dead. And he will clarify further why he's saying this in the next verses. So this is like a chastisement. So Lord at once took the position of a teacher and chastised the student, calling him indirectly a fool. You're talking like a learned man, but you do not know that one who is learned, one who knows what is body and what is soul, doesn't lament for any stage of the body, neither in the living nor in the dead condition. Natvevaham jatunasam natvam neme janadipa nachaiva na bhavishyamaha sarve vayam atah param. Never was there a time when I did not exist, nor you, nor all these kings, nor in the future shall any of us cease to be. So Krishna is clarifying that why are you lamenting? There was never a time that you did not exist, Jivatma did not exist, nor I, Krishna, I did not exist, nor any of these kings that have assembled in this battlefield. There was never a time they did not exist. They will exist now, they will exist in the future, and they have existed in the past. What does it mean? We all know the bodies change, body perishes over a period of time. After say 100 years of lifetime, the body doesn't exist anymore. So what Krishna is referring to is the Jivatma. The Jivatma, that is the real personality, never ceased to exist. He existed in the past, he will exist now, and he will exist in the future. And another important point here is there were some class of philosophers called Mayavadis, and their understanding is that the soul merges into God at liberation. But this kind of contradicts that statement by saying that actually God exists now, Jivatma exists now, and he will also continues to exist. So the soul is individual eternally. The soul is individual now, soul is going to be individual in the future, and has been individual in the past. So the soul has no beginning. So we are used to thinking in terms of birth and death, beginning and ending. But that is only possible in the context of body. We do not even understand what is eternal existence because we think in terms of we are wired to think in terms of body. But the soul has no beginning. That is the nature of the soul. It's an ontological existence. It has no beginning. It becomes more clear as we speak in the further. So this is Gnana section of Bhagavad Gita. Yeah. So here in Kathopanishad, there is a very interesting statement. Nityo nityanam chedanas chedananam eko bahunam yo vidadati kaman tamatma stham ye nupasyanti dhiras tesham santi saswati netaresham. What does this mean? Nityo nityanam chetanas chetanam eko bahunam yo vidadati kaman. The same Vedic truth given to Arjuna is given to all persons in this world who pose themselves as very learned but factually have but a poor fund of knowledge. Yeah, yeah. So this statement is explained here. It is said that the Supreme Personality of Godhead is the maintainer of innumerable living entities in terms of their different situations according to the individual work and reaction of work. Yeah. So Nityo Nityana means Jiva is Nitya and Bhagavan is Nitya. What is the difference between Bhagavan and Jiva? Yako Bhavanam Yo Vidadati Kaman means one is maintainer of all the other living entities. That's the difference. So there is a very detailed explanation of this Mayavada philosophy, which is not incorrect. They say that after liberation, the soul merges into uh, impersonal Brahman, Brahma Jyoti. That's not I mean that kind of a liberation exists, but it's not considered permanent existence because Jiva is always looking for relationship, and that's where it really realizes its full potential. So you can read this purport. It is a very detailed explanation on Mayavad philosophy. Yeah. Now this is a very important verse. Dehinosmin yata dehe kaumaram yavanam jara tata dehantara praptir dhirastatra namuhyate. As the embodied soul, dehino means one who is embodied. Dehe means having body. So as the embodied soul continuously passes in this body from boyhood to youth to old age, the soul similarly passes into another body at death. A sober person is not bewildered by such a change. So what is explained here? The jiva, just like it passes from boyhood to youth and to old age. Right? When I remember when I am 2 years old or 3 years old, I identify with that person that existed, say, 30 years back or 25 years back as a young boy. Hmm? Now I have changed from that body to youth body, and then now I'm a middle-aged person, for example, right? So just like the soul has passed from these different stages within this lifetime, you can all relate to it. Hmm? Similarly, the soul also passes into another body at death. So soul continuously passes from one. So the body goes through changes, 6 stages of changes. It is born, it grows, it produces some byproducts and stays for some time, and then ultimately dwindles and dies. So the body is temporary, and it goes through all these 6 changes, transformations. Similarly, we can all see that we all have been, younger, and then we became middle-aged, and then in the future we'll become old bodied. So the soul continues to be the witness for all these transformations. The soul is the same. So you always identify yourself with that boy that you remember when you were only like 5 years old. You still identify with that personality, but the body has completely changed. Nobody can stop change of body. Arjuna is saying, I'm not going to kill my teacher, my grandfather. But does that mean that the body is not going to stop changing? No. Whether it is in this battlefield or in the future somewhere, the body is going to change. So a sober person is not bewildered by such a change. A sober person. So what is a sober means? The opposite of sober is intoxication. Means somebody who is drunkard. A sober person is not bewildered, is not confused by such a change, meaning that most of us who are embodied in this body is like an intoxication. As soon as we enter this body, we start identifying with this body. Hmm? So we often go through a state of happiness and misery simultaneously, one after the other. So that's all because of identity with the body. We identify ourselves strongly with the body. But a sober person who understands that I'm not actually this body, I'm only a witness within the body. I'm only a witness within the body. And so such a person, he is not bewildered, he's not confused when the body changes from different stages of life. And in fact, one may say, but a person is enjoying his body, why should he be killed? Why should he be taken out of that body? But actually, many people don't like to be in the old days. They want to quit it so that they can again get a new body. In the Puranic stories, there was a king called Yayati. So when Yayati, he was an old man, he wanted to become young and he was awarded a young body within the same lifetime. So he becomes a young man, and nobody was sad that the old man, oh, I'm missing the old man. When Yayati becomes the young person, everybody was happy. So transformation of body is something we cannot stop. So a sober person is not bewildered by such a change. He identifies, he does not identify with the body because he is fixed on the soul. He sees the soul, the eternality of the soul. He's not bewildered by bodily changes. Since every living entity is an individual soul, each is changing his body every moment, manifesting sometimes as a child, sometimes as a youth, and sometimes as an old man. Yet the same spirit soul is there and does not undergo any change. This individual soul finally changes the body at death and transmigrates to another body. And since it is sure to have another body in the next birth, either material or spiritual, there was no cause for lamentation by Arjuna on account of death, neither for Bhishma nor Drona. Because Bhishma and Drona are actually old. So in case, if, for Kshatriya it is his dharma to perform his duty of fighting. So in the deliverance of his duty, if suppose these bodies die, his teacher and his guru, they die, there is no need for lamentation because ultimately they're going to be awarded a fresh body, new body. And so for example, so when justice orders killing of a person, right, because of the whatever sinful actions he performed, there is no reaction for that activity because one is getting his karma according to his activities in the past. So when justice of peace awards such a punishment, it is just, it is right. And when that person gets executed, he will be removed of his sinful reactions and he will be awarded a new body. So similarly, when the Supreme Justice Krishna asks asks Arjuna to fight in this world to re-establish dharma, similarly there is no sin as Arjuna was fearing. It is actually just performance of his duty. So in the deliverance of duty, if suppose Bhishma and Drona die, they will be getting a fresh body instead. So Bhishma and Drona, being noble souls, were surely going to have spiritual bodies in the next life, or at least life in heavenly bodies for superior enjoyment of material existence. So in either case, there was no case for cause of lamentation. So there is no need for Arjuna to lament for his superiors. Hmm. So any man who has perfect knowledge of the constitution of individual soul, the super soul, and nature, both material and spiritual, is called dhira, or man, or most sober man. Such a man is never deluded by change of bodies. So a person who is not bewildered by changes in the body is called dhira, or a sober man. The opposite is an intoxicated man, adhira. So Bhagavad Gita encourages us to become dhiras. Now further Krishna explains. Matra sparshastu kaunteya sitoshna sukudakada agama payino nityas tam stitikshasva bharata. O son of Kunti, the non-permanent appearance of happiness and distress and their disappearance in due course are like the appearance and disappearance of winter and summer seasons. They arise from sense perception, O Sian of Bharata, and one must learn to tolerate them without being disturbed. Yeah. So the non-permanent appearance of happiness and distress and their disappearance in due course are like appearance and disappearance of winter and summer seasons. So just like seasonal changes happen, so similarly, happiness and distress also changes. Hmm? So it comes and goes. So sometimes we'll be happy, sometimes we'll be distressed. So they all arise from sense perception or seeing of Bharta, and one must learn to tolerate them without being disturbed. So no matter what, who we are, whether we are the president or the richest man or the poorest of the persons, this thing is never going to stop. You will switch between happiness and distress. And it is just like, there is winter, and then after winter, there's going to be summer. Again, next year, there will be winter. Again, there will be summer. There will be cold, there will be coldness, there will be heat. So, like that, happiness and distress also will be part of our life. For a period of time, you'll be very, very happy, and everything will go according to your plan. And there will be periods of time where you will be in stress, distress. So, when you are too happy, understand that this is not permanent. Similarly, when you are too distressful, also understand that it is not permanent. Neither of these things will be permanent. There will be ups and downs in life. So they both arise from sense perception, or Siyan of Bharata, and one must learn to tolerate them without being disturbed. So one must tolerate them without being disturbed. One should not feel disturbed. Understand that this is part of life. This is part of existence within the material world. It will come, happiness will come, and then again distress will come. Yeah. So just because there is distress, we should not stop performing our duty. Now, Arjuna, what is he saying? I'm in distress, so I'll not fight. Why? Because whatever actions I'm doing is going to cause misery. So I'm not going to perform my duty. So one should not be like that. Sometimes we have to go through miseries, huh? But still we should continue doing our duty. We'll slowly learn from our mistakes, and slowly we'll get out of the distress. And again, life will pose new challenges. Again, we go through some happiness, and again, distress comes. Again, you learn from the experience and move on. We should not be too disturbed. In the proper discharge of duty, one has to learn to tolerate non-permanent appearance and disappearance of happiness and distress. According to Vedic injunction, one has to take bath early in the morning, even during the month of Magha, January and February. That month is very cold. So, but still, in the olden days, people used to go to a well and quickly pour a couple of jugs of water on their head, even in the month of Magha in the cold season. It is very cold at the time, but in spite of that, a man who abides by the religious principle does not hesitate to take his bath. Similarly, a woman does not hesitate to cook in the kitchen in the months of May and June when it is too hot, right? The hottest part of the summer season. One has to execute his duty in spite of the climatic inconveniences. There will be inconveniences, but one should not stop performing his duties. He should continue to perform his duty. Similarly, to fight in the religious principle of the Kshatriyas, and although one has to fight with some friends or relative, one should not deviate from his prescribed duty. One should continue to perform his duty. So what is the duty of Arjuna? He has to fight. He is a Kshatriya. So he should not give up his duty for the reason that there will be inconvenience or distress in the execution of his duty. Yeah. One has to follow the prescribed rules and regulations of religious principles in order to rise to the platform of knowledge, because by knowledge and devotion only can one liberate himself from the clutches of illusion, Maya. So when you go through these miseries of life, that gives you knowledge, actually that brings you to the platform of knowledge, understand that the non-permanence of these phenomena of this existence within the material world, and helps you tolerate this inconveniences in this material world. Yeah. So here Krishna addresses Arjuna as O son of Kunti, Kaunteya. That is reminding of his blood relation. The two different names of address given to Arjuna are also significant. To address him as Kaunteya signifies his great blood relation from his mother's side, and to address him as Bharata signifies his greatness from his father's side. Bharata means one who is coming in the dynasty of King Bharat. King Bharat was the reason for the country of India to be named Bharatvarsh. He was a great king in the very past. He is not the brother of Rama. Bharat is even much before that, much before Ramayana happened. Uh, that story is described in Bhagavatam. From both sides, he is supposed to have a great heritage from both mother's side as well as father's side. So a great heritage brings responsibility in the matter of proper discharge of duties. Therefore, he cannot avoid fighting. Arjuna should not give up fighting. Yam hina vyatayanti ete purusham purushashaba samadukha sukham dhiram somritavyaya kalpate. O best among men, Arjuna, the person who is not disturbed by happiness and distress and is steady in both is certainly eligible for liberation. Now, Krishna is actually telling what is the benefit of staying patient and not being disturbed, being sober in the events of appearance of happiness and distress in this life. What happens to such a person? The person who is not disturbed by happiness and distress and is steady in both is certainly eligible for liberation. One, just by being tolerant, understand that this body will go through experiences of happiness and distress time to time, again and again. It's not going to be permanent happiness, it's not going to be permanent distress. For example, the world was mostly happy for a very long time, more than a decade. There were no disturbances, there are no wars, and suddenly this corona happened. Now entire world shrinked. There is so much distress, people go into depression, and many people are doing even suicides because of the confusion and the societal changes. But a person who is not disturbed understand, actually I'm not this body, I'm a spirit soul, and this body is a temporary vehicle for me, and it changes, it goes through sometimes situations of happiness, sometimes situations of distress, and is steady in both. Then such a person becomes eligible for liberation. In the Varnashrama institution, the fourth stage of life, namely the renounced order, sannyas, is a painstaking situation, but one who is serious about making his life perfect surely adopts the sannyasa order of life in spite of all difficulties. The difficulties arise from having to sever family to give up the connection of wife and children. But if anyone is able to tolerate such difficulty, surely his path of self-realization is complete. Yeah. Na sato vidyate bhavo, na bhavo vidyate sata, ubhayor abhidrishtontas, tvananyos tattvadarshibhi. Those who are seers of truth have concluded that of the non-existence, the material body, there is no endurance. Endurance means continuance of existence. And of the eternal, the soul, there is no change. This they have concluded by studying the nature of both. The seers means those who are wise, the sages, they have concluded already very clearly that the body, for the body, there is no permanence. And for the soul, there is no change. Soul will always remain the soul. It, it is, it is, Satchidananda, Satchidananda Swarupa, and it would never change. It was eternally existing. We can't even understand because there is nothing that we can really understand about eternality of our existence easily until we completely realize ourselves. Yeah. So this they have concluded by studying the nature of both. Yeah, very nice purport here. We can read it at home. Yeah. Avinashita tadbuddhi tadvidhi yena sarvam idam tatam vinasham avyayasyasya nakaschit kartumarhati. That which pervades the entire body, you should know to be indestructible. No one is able to destroy that imperishable soul. Now Krishna is talking about the soul. In the here, he was talking about both soul and body. Now he is talking about the eternality of the soul. He is further explaining here that which pervades the entire body. So the soul is, it's stated in other scriptures, the soul is situated in the region of the heart. So where does soul exist? It seats itself in the region of the heart. So it sits in the heart. So that's where the energy is produced and the whole body system works. The blood completely works out through the entire body. So so the soul's influence is spread throughout the body. If I pinch you anywhere in the body, you get the pain because the conscious soul's existence is pervaded through entire body as consciousness. So you will be conscious if somebody touches you, you'll be conscious. If there is a pain in your body somewhere, you will be conscious because the soul's existence is pervaded through entire body, like in terms of consciousness. Just like sun is there in one place, but the sunlight pervades through the entire world, entire universe actually. So sun is there in one place, but its light and heat is spread all over the world. So similarly, the soul exists within the heart. It exists. It's a spiritual entity. It is situated in the heart, but its presence is expanded through the entire body as consciousness. So we can perceive that. What is the difference between a dead body and a living body? So dead body means there is no consciousness. If you slap a dead body, you wouldn't realize. If you pinch a dead body, it doesn't experience any pain because there is no soul and there is no consciousness. So there is no consciousness. So there is no pain. Everyone is conscious of the pains and pleasures of the body in part or as a whole. This spreading of consciousness is limited within one's own body. Huh? If you feel pain, I wouldn't feel pain, because your consciousness is spread only within your body. My consciousness is spread within my body. The pains and pleasures of one body are unknown to other. Therefore, each and every body is the embodiment of the individual soul. The soul's consciousness is spread only within the individual body, and the symptom of soul's presence is perceived as individual consciousness. Yeah, so here the size of the soul is explained in Svetastra Upanishad. What does it say? When the upper point of a hair is divided into 100 parts, and again each of such part is further divided into 100 parts. You take a hair, the head of the hair, tip, and cut into 100 parts, and take each part and cut into 100 parts again. So each such part is the measurement of the dimension of the spirit soul. So it's almost infinitesimal, it's immeasurable. It's not physical also. You can't even view that in a microscope. It's not physical. It's a spiritual in nature. And it's very minute. It's very tiny. It's anu. It's called anu. Yeah, it's also mentioned in another Upanishad. Keshagra Sata Bhagasya Satam Sah Sadrisha Shatmaka. Yeah. There are innumerable particles of spiritual atoms which are measured as 1/10,000 of the upper portion of the hair. So that is the size of this soul. But interestingly, that soul, which is so small, moves the body of an ant. It also moves the body of an elephant. Imagine. That's the greatness of the soul. It's so powerful. Yeah. Prabhupada here talks about Hatha Yoga, how different vayus. The soul actually, just to give you understanding, soul floats in 5 kinds of air. The soul within the body, it is situated within the heart, as I mentioned before, and there are 5 kinds of air called prana, apana, vyana, samana, and udana. So these, some of them will be floating upward, some downward, some sideways, and by the end of it, they are going to balance the soul. And a yogi actually tries to control through his breathing exercises and through his chanting. The Hatha Yoga system is meant for controlling 5 kinds of air, encircling the pure soul by different kinds of sitting postures, not for any material profit, but for the liberation of the minute soul from the entanglement of the material atmosphere. So he raises the soul through various chakras within the body. So that is the process of Hatha Yoga. In Bhakti Yoga, we don't do any such mechanical process of raising the Kundalini through various chakras. So that is a path of Hatha Yoga, where a yogi performs to lift um, the airs, the soul, the consciousness chakra from from lower part under spinal cord to upper part called Agni Chakra. But anyway, that's a mechanical process of raising consciousness. So we practice Bhakti Yoga, which also helps raise the consciousness through the process of loving devotion service to God. Yeah, it's further explained very nicely. So you can read all of this nice details here. Antavanta ime deha nityasokta sarirena anasino prameyasya tasmad yujyasva bharata. The material body of the indestructible, immeasurable, and eternal living unity is sure to come to an end. Therefore, fight, O descendant of Bharata. Krishna is saying this middle body is anyway going to come to end. Therefore, fight, O descendant of Bharata. Don't give up your duty. The middle body is perishable by nature. It may perish immediately or it may do so after 100 years. It is a question of time. There is no chance of maintaining it indefinitely. So, but the spirit soul is so minute that it cannot even be seen by an enemy, to say nothing of being killed. So the body is destructible. Now he is talking about body. Middle body of the the soul. So middle body of the indestructible, immeasurable. You cannot even measure, as we mentioned in Shvetashtra Upanishad, the size of the soul. So no, the body is going to come to an end. Therefore, fight, or descendant of Partha. Just because you cannot stop your grandfather and your teacher from dying. They have changed their body from being young to youth to a middle-aged man, and now they're old. And eventually, whether you kill them in this duty of fighting or as a natural call for death comes to them, they're going to die. It's just a matter of time. So for the sake of your own distress, do not stop performing your duty of fighting. That is your duty as a Kshatriya. You should continue to participate in your duty as a Kshatriya. You should not give that up. It's just a matter of time. They are going to die. And when they die, they are again going to get a new body. And that could be young, that could be a body in a heavenly planet or even in a spiritual planet like Vaikunthas. Who knows? Because they're all great people. They would get great life in the future. So just because they're going to die, you should not stop performing your duty. Yayenam vetti hantaram yaschainam manyate hatam bahu tauna vijanito nayam hanti na hanyate. Neither he who thinks the living entity is the slayer, nor he who thinks is slain is in knowledge. For this self slays not, nor is slain. So what Krishna is saying is, the living entity, the jiva, is not the slayer, nor he thinks it's slain is in knowledge. If you think you are the killer or the killed, neither is in knowledge, because there is nothing that gets really killed. The body alone changes in this transformation. For the self slays nor is slain. You're performing your duty because of you have this body right now. But otherwise, the soul is neither the killer nor the killed. When an embodied living entity is hurt by fatal weapons, it is to be known that the living entity within the body is not killed. The spirit soul is so small that it is impossible to kill him by any material weapon, as will be evident from the subsequent verses. The spirit soul is so small. How can anybody even attack with a material weapon? It doesn't even happen, right? Nor is the living entity killable because of this spiritual constitution. Because the nature of the soul is spiritual and there is no way it gets killed. What is killed or is supposed to be killed is the body only. This, however, does not at all encourage killing of the body. So it doesn't mean that you go and kill anybody. There was a call of duty as Kshatriya for Arjuna. So he is just doing his duty. But the main point is, we should understand from the ultimate angle of this spirit soul, not of the body. The Vedic injunction Mahimsyut sarva bhutani, never commit violence to anyone. Nor does understanding that the living entity is not killed encourage animal slaughter. Doesn't mean that we even kill animals because ultimately the soul is not dead. But why people do that is for their own enjoyment, right? So neither that is encouraged. Killing the body of anyone without the authority is abominable. Here, Arjuna has the authority because he's a Kshatriya and he is doing this on the order of Krishna, who is the supreme authority, like the supreme justice. Under the authority, if suppose a person is hanged because the Supreme Court justice has awarded punishment for a person. hmm, Or take the example of a soldier. A soldier is fighting for the country. So he killed 100 people on the border of Kashmir. hmm, He killed 100 militants. Then he will be awarded Paramveer Chakra. hmm, He will be awarded by the President of India a Paramveer Chakra and a cash award. Now the soldier goes to his village and he was too happy and he goes to a bar and somebody somebody makes fun of him and he gets angry and he opens his pistol and shoots him. What happens? He will be arrested immediately. Even though he was a great soldier who protected 100, who killed 100 people, 100 militants on the border, he will be arrested because he is doing without authority here. He is not supposed to do what he has done. So under authority, one is eligible to perform his duty, even though it appears to be abominable. The act of killing 100 militants is abominable, but he is not punishable under law because of that. But if he takes control, authority into his hands and performs actions according to his own whims, then he will be punishable by laws of the state as well as the laws of the Lord. If he's not killed, if he's not punished in this world, his karma will take care of him in the subsequent lifetimes. There is no escape from punishment for the wrongdoings that one performs. Arjuna, however, is being engaged in killing the principles of religion. He's trying to do this for the protection of principle of religion. He's not doing whimsically. He's not doing, oh, okay, I don't like these people, let me kill them. No, he's actually he's doing fight, dharma yuddha, on behalf of Krishna. So it's not a whimsical act of killing people, which would incur sin. न जायते मृते वा कदाचिन् नायं भूत्वा भविता वा न भूया अजो नित्यः शाश्वतोऽयं पुराणो न हन्यते हन्यमाने शरीरे. A very famous verse. For the soul, there is neither birth nor death at any time. There was neither birth nor death for the soul. Soul always exists eternally. Krishna nails this point again and again and again and again because it has to really come through as a important lesson for Arjuna at this point. He's so distressed. He hasn't come into being, does not come into being, and will not come into being. The soul will never newly produce. It's there eternally. He's just transforming from one body to another body. He is unborn, eternal, ever existing, and primeval. He is not slain when the body is slain. When the body is slain, the, the soul is not slain. So the soul continues to exist. So there are many stories of um, past life memories. For example, uh, there were at least 5,000 scientifically recorded cases of people remembering their past lives, meaning they were somebody's family relation within this world. Actually, they are born within this world, within the same country. That's why they're able to easily recognize. So they were, somebody like a mother of or a daughter of somebody in a nearby village, and again they're born in a adjacent village in the next lifetime. At the age of 4 or 5, all these past memories come come to their memory, and they would ask their they're like young people like 4 or 5 years old. They ask their parents to go and take them to that place, and they reunite with the old family. They connect with the old family, not reunite, but connect with the old family. And they speak about who they were, what they were doing in their previous lifetime. um, there are a lot of many interesting stories like that. The reason is the soul is same. The observer in this body, in the new body, and the old body, they're the same. The soul is the same, and the mind is the same. The mind is the repository of all the memories. Not everybody gets the opportunity to remember his past life. Not, I mean, even people who remember also, they forget after they become 7 or 8 years. Most people remember between 4 years and 7 years. Uh, there are like thousands of recorded cases like that. I can forward some links about such stories of people um, who remembered their past lives. So that the reason is the soul. It's scientifically proven also that actually there is something that continues to exist from one body to another body. The science cannot fathom what that is, because it is spiritual in nature, and material instruments cannot measure it, right? The material instruments, even our bodily instruments like eyes, ears, nose, all our senses, they're all limited. They all have four defects. Our senses are imperfect. So they cannot, with our senses or our material instruments like scientific apparatus, we cannot perceive soul, because soul is so minute. We cannot, and it's spiritual in nature. No material instrument can observe it. But how do we measure? How do we observe? We can observe by its symptoms. For example, consciousness is a symptom of the soul. If a person has a soul, he would have consciousness in the body. That's how. So what you cannot perceive through direct perception, you can perceive through its symptoms. For example, we cannot understand that there is something called intelligence or something called memory, mind. But from its symptoms, that I remember what I spoke in the last class. For example, I remember um, what I did yesterday. How is it possible? The physical body is, where is that coming from? That, so we understand that there is something called mind, and I'm able to discriminate things. So I understand that there is intelligence. Just because we can't physically see mind within this body anywhere, can we say there is no way, there is no existence of mind? Brain is just an apparatus, but uh, where is the, just like hardware is there and software is there. Software you cannot really see it, hardware you see. Brain is also similarly an apparatus where mind operates, just like software operates within hardware to get the functionality you want. So that's how we understand. Uh, for the soul, there is neither birth nor death. He has not come into being, does not come into being, and will not come into being. He will not come into being. He is always there. He is unborn, eternal, ever existing, and primeval. Yeah. Qualitatively, the small fragmental parts of spirit soul is one with the Supreme. He undergoes no changes like the body. Sometimes the soul is called the study or kutastha. The body is subject to 6 kinds of transformations. It takes its birth from the womb of the mother's body. remains for some time, grows, produces some effects, gradually dwindles, and at last vanishes into oblivion. The soul, however, does not go through such changes. The soul is not born, but because he takes on a material body, the body takes its birth. The soul doesn't take birth there, and the soul does not die. Anything which has birth also has death, and because the soul has no birth, he therefore has no past, present, or future. Soul has no past, present, or future. He is eternal, ever existing, and primeval. That is, there is no trace in history of his coming into being. He is never come into being. Under the impression of the body, we seek the history of birth of the soul. Yeah. The soul does not at any time become old as the body does. So this is the nature of the soul, and further Prabhupada explains. It's a statement from Kathopanishad. So what is the nature of the soul? That is explained here and further explained in future verses as well. The soul is full of knowledge, or full always with consciousness. Therefore, consciousness is the symptom of the soul. Even if one does not find the soul within the heart where he is situated, one can still understand the presence of the soul simply by the presence of consciousness. Yeah, that was the test. How can you know that you have soul? You cannot see it. It's not physically visible to our naked eye, unless, at an advanced stage, a spiritualist can perceive very clearly the soul. Not see with the naked eye, but perceive it very clearly. But for us, it's at this point, it's not possible. Sometimes we do not find the sun in the sky owing to clouds or for some other reasons. But the light of the sun is always there, and we are convinced that it is there for daytime. As soon as there is a little light in the sky early in the morning, we can understand that the sun is in the sky. Similarly, there is some consciousness in all bodies, whether man or animal. We can understand the presence of the soul. Yeah, but this consciousness of the soul is, however, different from the consciousness of the supreme soul, because the supreme consciousness is all knowledge, past, present, and future. In our case, we remember only our current, but Lord is not like that. So we are spiritual, Lord is also spiritual. But what is the difference between you and God? Your consciousness is spread only within your body, but Paramatma's consciousness is spread in all bodies. It's like, suppose there is sun in the sky, and then you have sun is very, it's the midday, and sun is on the head, right? So you have, say, 100 parts of water. You put them on the ground, 100 parts. In each of the part, you can see the image of sun, right? Sun is reflected in each of the parts. So similarly, God exists within every jiva's body, and He is the one who directs our actions from staying within the heart. So within our heart, there are actually two things. One is the individual jiva, Atma, and Paramatma. Both exist. So that's why our body is also considered a temple, because it is where God exists. But of course, the jiva in the material world is completely turned away from God. He is not looking towards the God. He is acting on his own. So he is not tuned to God. Yoga means connecting jiva with Paramatma in consciousness, not physical connection. In consciousness, you are aligned in harmony with Paramatma. Then, when you purify your heart, And when you are aligned with the and you live in harmony with Supreme Soul, then Paramatma guides you. You can actually receive instruction from Paramatma. So this comes at a higher stage of development of our consciousness. Yeah. So right now we are in a forgetful state, completely forgetful of God within our heart. We are completely living like independent of God. The consciousness of the individual soul is prone to be forgetful, because individual, it's like fire. And so from the fire you'll also get some small pieces of fire, right? So what is the strength of that? It's very light, it can be easily covered by um, it can be easily stopped by air or water, huh? The small filings of fire coming out of large fire. So Jiva is also like that. He is very much similar to God in its nature. Sat Chid Ananda. He is eternal. He is full of knowledge of self, and full of blissful in nature. But he is very Anu. But God is considered Vibhu. He is eternal. He is he is eternal, and his knowledge is infinite, unlike our knowledge, which is very limited. And his bliss is also unlimited. So that's the difference between Jiva and Paramatma. Paramatma is also individual. That's the main point to understand. Yeah, so that is mentioned here. There are two kinds of souls, namely the minute particle soul, Anu Atma, and the super soul, Vibhu Atma. This is confirmed in Katha Upanishad. Anayor aniyan mahato mahiyan atmasya janto nihito guhayam tamakuta pasyati rito soka dhatu prasadan mahimanam atmana. Both the super soul, Paramatma, and the atomic soul, Jivatma, are situated on the same tree of the body within the same heart of the living being, and only one who has become free from all the material desires of, as well as lamentations, can, by the grace of the Supreme, understand the glories of the soul. Yeah. So Krishna is the fountainhead of the super soul also, as it will be disclosed in the following chapters. And Arjuna is the atomic soul, forgetful of his real nature. Therefore, he requires to be enlightened by Krishna or by his bona fide representatives, the spiritual master. Veda vinashinam nityam yenam ajamavyayam katam sa purusha parda kam ghatayati hantikam. O Partha, how can a person who knows that the soul is indestructible, eternal, unborn, and immutable kill anyone or cause anyone to kill? The same point repeated again. But nature of the soul is further explained as being indestructible, eternal, and unborn. He can never be destroyed. You cannot destroy the soul. It cannot be destroyed at all. You cannot blast it with the atomic bomb. Nothing happens to the soul. He is eternal. He is always existing. He is unborn. He has no birth. He is eternally existing, coexisting with God. That's how we say. We don't come from God. We coexist with God always, eternally. We are actually coexist means in future it will come. How exactly the existence of God and us happen, right? Mamaivamso jivaloka jivabhuta sanatana manasastrani indriyani prakritim sthani karshati. So the jiva is amsa of God. Mamai vamso jiva loka. So all the jivas in this loka are my amsas, means parts, my parts and parcel. If God is this entire body. We are like hair particle. We are part of God's existence. Hmm? But we also can independently exist. You can take out your hair and it exists independently, right? So it's like that. And the hair is lifeless. Your body has life. So it's not a perfect example. But in our case, we are like hair, but we still have life. That's the difference. So we are like um, tiny images of God. But I mean, our power and our everything is Anu. We are mentioned as Anu in the previous verse, right? In the previous, so it's mentioned Anur, Aniyan, Mahato, Mahiya. Minute soul. The soul is minute and the super soul is Vibhu. God's power is unlimited and he exists separately. He is independent. He is separate. And we are, as Anu, we are different from him. We are dependent on him, but we are different from him. Individual, eternal. But we are eternal. We are eternally existing along with God. We don't come out of God, just to understand, as spirit souls. So ultimately, it is like one entire universal existence as God. We are part of God, and but still we exist independent of God. Our soul's individuality exists separately. Yeah, here Prabhupada nicely explains this. Everything that is has its proper utility, and a man who is situated in complete knowledge knows how and where to apply a thing for its proper utility. Similarly, violence also has its utility, and how to apply violence rests with the person in knowledge. For example, sometimes a person has to go through surgery. Hmm? Surgery is in a way, one has to be cut open, but a expert doctor knows how to use violence for the good of the person, right? For the good of the patient. So similarly, everything has utility. We cannot say, oh, we should always be peaceful, no violence. Violence is required sometimes to eliminate the unwanted things from this existence. Hmm? So just like a diseased person has to be cut off some part of the body if that part is not functioning properly. Hmm? The cutting that part would actually save his life. So similarly, violence also has utility. How to apply violence rests with the person in knowledge. Although the justice of peace awards capital punishment to a person condemned for murder, the justice of peace cannot be blamed because he orders violence to another person according to the courts of justice. In Manu Samhita, the law book for mankind, it is supported that a murderer should be condemned to death so that in his next life he will not have to suffer for the great sin he has committed. If he is not punished in this life by the king, he will be punished in a future for his karma. His sinful reactions will have to be experienced in the future, or in a lower planetary system where he'll be subjected to because of his sinful actions. Therefore, the king's punishment of hanging a murderer is actually beneficial. Similarly, when Krishna orders fighting, it must be concluded that violence is for supreme justice. And thus, Arjuna should follow the instruction, knowing well that violence committed in the act of fighting for Krishna is not violence at all, because at any rate, the man, or rather the soul, cannot be killed. So, for the administration of justice, so called violence is permitted. So, here Arjuna is actually fighting on behalf of Krishna. But unnecessary violence, whimsical actions are not encouraged. I mean, they're not the ones to be done. A surgical operation is not meant to kill the patient but to cure him. Therefore, the fighting to be executed by Arjuna at the instruction of Krishna is with full knowledge. So there is no possibility of sinful reaction. Krishna actually correcting Arjuna's misunderstanding He was feeling, if I kill, what happens? I will get sinful reactions. Krishna is countering this by saying that you are only performing your duty, and ultimately you are the soul that is going to be subjected to this bodily death is eternal and unborn and immutable, so it can never be killed. This will be the last verse for the day. Vasamsi जीर्णानि यथा विहाय नवानि गृह्णन्ति नरोपराणि तथा शरीराणि विहाय जीर्णानि अन्यानि संयाति navani dehi. As a person puts on new garments, giving up old ones, the soul similarly accepts new material bodies, giving up the old and useless ones. So just like we all have this experience, we all wear certain garments today, and after 1 year, when these garments become old and washed and worn, what do? We change that, we just change the new garment. We just change to new garments, giving up the old garments. So similarly, the soul keeps changing the body, which is like a covering, just like a shirt or pant. How, when it is no more usable, we change the dress. Similarly, the jivatma, when the body becomes useless and uh, you know not tolerable to live in anymore, it just changes the body and freshly gets a new body according to his karma. I mean, we'll discuss the how exactly the jiva gets the next body in the future chapters. But just like garments we change, the soul also changes the bodies. It's as simple as that. So one should not be giving up his duty with the fear of changing the body. Yeah, Srila Prabhupada explains nicely. You can read further. So any questions so far? In a lot of philosophy we discussed today. I mean, some of these concepts will become more and more clear. This is a summary chapter where Krishna just gives a brief idea of all the important concepts, and then Arjuna asks questions. Krishna keeps on giving this knowledge. Arjuna doesn't get chance here at this point. And in the future, he would clarify one question after the other. So it will continue further in the future chapters and verses. Yeah, so any questions on any verses that we discussed so far?
I have a question, Prabhuji.
Yeah, Hare Krishna.
Hare
Sudha
Krishna.
Mataji. Yeah.
So, this in one of your previous lectures, you mentioned that Arjuna was 87 years old when he fought in the war of Kurukshetra, if I heard it correctly.
Yeah, yeah. Correct.
So I was wondering that during that time also the ashram pratha, like the brahmacharya ashram, grasta ashram, and vanprastha sannyas was there.
Hmm.
So at 87, you are supposed to be in sannyas ashram, right?
Oh, yeah. So the reason is, the lifetime is different in those ages. So at that age, on average, people used to live almost 500 plus years. So that was the lifetime. So lifetime is different in each ages. In Kali Yuga, the maximum lifetime is 100. In the previous ages, it was, yeah, in Lord Rama's time, it is much longer. So I mean, time is always relative. So we are
Yes.
talking in terms of our current age. So at 87 years, he is still a very young man at that time.
Okay, so the lifespan is 500, so of
Yes,
course it's
yes.
a very young
Yeah.
person.
Yeah, I mean, in the beginning of Dwapara Yuga, people were living almost 1,000 years. Towards the end, it is less and less. So he came towards
Okay,
the end.
because according to Ayurveda, this the person is living his life properly, they can live for 120 years even in Kali Yuga.
Correct. In
So,
Kali Yuga, it is the shortest. In the previous ages, for example, in we hear about Vishwamitra and all, they were doing. So in Satya Yuga, lifetime is like 70, 80,000 years. In current times, comparing to our time, in our years. So at that time, he was performing tapas for almost 30,000, 40,000 years. So it's time is very relative, you know. How do you understand? Sometimes you find flies that live only one night. In India, you might have remembered there are flies that are born only during the evening of a rainy day. They come around the light, and by the next morning they would all die. These flies, with flapping wings, they would just come in the evening. They're born and they die. So that's their lifetime. That's their 100 years. In that whole period, they would produce children. They would lead their entire life. So time works very relatively. Again, lifetime in higher planets like Swargaloka is at least 10,000 years according to our time scale. Lifetime in lower planets is very, very short. It's like, how do you understand this? So you suppose take a take a wheel, okay? Take a large wheel, okay? The thing that is at the end of the wheel, towards at the longest, farthest in the radius one. Suppose there are items placed at different radiuses, okay? Not radius, on the line of radius, you put elements at different places on the line of radius, okay? For the time, Kala Chakra is rotates like that wheel, okay? The one at the center would experience the rotations much faster, right? The one at the border of the radius, you can imagine the wheel, right? So for him, the experience of one circle is a very long duration, right? I mean, in terms of the length of the entire circle. Are you getting the what I'm trying to say?
yes,
So
so
yeah.
yes.
So time is experienced by different living entities according to their Kala Chakra. So everybody is situated in Kala Chakra at certain points. So that's why lifetimes are different. An animal, a dog can live say 15 years. His Kala Chakra is like that. So Kala Chakra works like that. It's like a large wheel, and so everybody's body type is placed at a certain chakra level, and the span is defined by the radius unto them, up to that time.
So by this logic, the Kal Chakra, the center of the wheel is Kali Yuga and the periphery is Satyuga, right?
Right, yeah. I mean, you can literally understand like that, yeah. But
Yes, I mean,
Kal Chakra works independent of the cycles. But yeah, so in the overall duration of Satyuga is about 4 times of Kali Yuga. For example, our Kali Yuga is 4,32,000 years, and Satyuga is 16 or 18 lakh years, okay, roughly. 4 times of Kali Yuga, and Dwapara Yuga is 2 times. Treta Yuga is 3 times. So lifespan in those days were 100 times more than ours. Towards the
okay.
end of Kali Yuga, lifetime would be almost 30 to 40 years at most. If you have lived about 30 years, you will be considered a very old man. Yeah. So it Kala Chakra operates within the time cycle also. And again, next freshly new Satyuga begins. At that time, again, lifetime is again almost 100,000 years.
Mhm.
Yeah. So it's like that.
Okay.
And that's
So,
why
mhm,
in Swargaloka, okay,
mhm,
we perform all our festivals come during Uttarayan. The 6 months of waning moon, rising moon. And for 6 months, we don't have much festivals because when we perform festivals, that's the daytime for in Swargaloka. So our one daytime is like, one daytime of Swargaloka is equivalent to 6 months of our time frame. We spend
Okay.
6 months by when they spend their half day or daytime, and their night is again 6 months. We'll understand all these things in future verses in Bhagavad Gita. So in a 1 year, one Uttarayan, one Dakshinayan happens, right? So from Sankranti till July is that period of Uttarayan where all these festivals happen. And that's actually yogis try to leave their body at that time, because in higher planetary systems, the demigods would help them to raise them to higher planets. So it's a complicated science actually.
But what about all the festivals which comes after July, like Janmashtami and Ganesh Chaturthi and Diwali? They are all big festivals, right?
Yeah, they're all big festivals, but the performance of sacrifices, actually not festivals. When I say, actually their performance of sacrifices were starting from Sankranti up
Sacrifices,
to, yeah.
sacrifices means that holding the
Yeah,
yajna.
performance of yagnas and
Okay.
pujas, major some of the pujas. Yeah, of course, these we celebrate as these are events actually, like Ram killed certain demon, Krishna is born. These are festivals, but those are events. Yeah.
Okay, okay. And I had one more question that if somebody else wants to ask anything else, I mean, I can ask later.
Okay. Anybody has any other question? Otherwise, we'll continue with this Sudha Mataji question. Yeah, go ahead.
So, Prabhuji, you said I was listening about the size of the soul, the Jivatma.
Hmm.
So, but you also said that soul is something spiritual. So
Hmm.
even if it is very minute, like you said that you take the tip of the hair and you divide it into 100 portion and take one portion and then divide it again into 100 portion, that would be the size of the soul.
Correct.
But
Yeah.
if it is spiritual, then how can it even we put a even a minutest size to it?
Okay.
It should.
Oh, that is actually a allegorical example. You cannot really. It's just to understand the minuteness of the soul. It's not literal. It's it's not a literal explanation actually. It's for us to understand the smallness of the soul. It's almost, imagine the tip of hair, how small it is, and divide that into 100 parts. Sorry, 10,000 parts. How small it would be. Yeah. So it's just uh, yeah. That's so, because when scriptures describe, they have to describe just to get a idea of what that is. But that is mainly to make us understand. For example, if somebody wants to explain electric shock, he can put in so many words, but unless you experience, you won't get it. So similarly, there will be words put in to make us get a idea of what that is like, because people consider hair, the tip of the hair to be extremely small, and when consider dividing that into 10,000 parts, that is such a minute uh, thing. Yeah. So just to give a comparative understanding, that is mentioned that way. But actually, soul is spiritual in nature. It cannot be cut. But we understand that is minute.
Oh, okay. Thank you, Prabhuji.
Hmm.
And my daughter also has one question. She was listening with me today.
Sure.
So, uh,
Yeah.
her name is Mahi.
Namaste, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna.
So, Prabhuji, my question is that in yajnas, I have heard that they they sacrifice animals, and only sages who can transport their animal's soul into another soul. That's why they do those yajnas.
Mm-hmm. Correct. Yeah.
So we were just talking about how some somber person doesn't care if you go from young to old. So why transport this body from a young to old body?
Uh, Sorry, I didn't clearly get your question part. So you explained about sacrifice and where an animal is sacrificed such that it gets a new body, younger body. Okay, and what is the question after that?
My question is that we were talking about how this how the body grows from young to old, and the soul doesn't get affected by the changes.
Correct.
So why would we want to make uh, this body even go from old to young?
So she's trying to say that why we need to even leave the body if the soul is
Oh,
always.
so that is the nature of the material world, where one is forced by their karma to transform from youth to you know, or youth to no, from boyhood to youth to old age. That is middle age and then old age. That is the nature's way of working within this world. So there is no way we can stop it. I mean, did I understand the question correctly, or?
Yes, so she was saying that if because recently my parents passed away, so she is very sad
Mm-hmm.
by the entire thing in couple of years.
Okay.
So she is asking that why if the soul is always there, so why even if you are old you need to leave that body? Why don't you just live in that body?
Mm. Yeah, because in old age the body becomes very fragile, weak, and dependent, and full of diseases. That's the nature of this world. You know, this body is actually like a disease. Even though in this young age we may not experience the pains of this body, slowly it will show its color. And that, I mean, that's the reason. That's the reason birth and death are considered real problems, and that is the nature of this world. Nobody can stop it. And ultimately, when we realize actually this place is a place of misery, and actually seriously pursue spiritual path, understand that we are actually not this body, we are spirit soul. And if we want to live eternally, because the question you asked is very reasonable, because the soul is eternal and the body is temporary. This is a very wild combination that causes all the anxiety, because you don't want to die. Why you don't want to die? Because that is the nature of the soul. That is what you are. Nobody wants death. Nobody wants themselves to die. Nobody wants their friends and relatives to die, because that is the nature of the soul's hankering. Soul is eternal. It expects everything to be eternal. Why not? Because that is the nature of it. And so when these bodily changes happen, especially the death, the relation is broken. At that time, it causes a lot of anxiety, because that is not something that soul is comfortable with dealing with. Actually, we all understand from our own experience. We don't want to die, because why? Because that is the nature of the soul. Soul is eternal in nature, and this body is temporary, and it is in incompatible relation with the body. And so whenever body changes, especially at the time of death, that is an unexpected event for the soul. It's so attached to the body, enjoying the body for so long, so it doesn't want to give up, neither he nor his body, neither his body nor his relative's body, because that is the way of communicating your happiness to them. Yeah, but that is the nature of this world. The six transformations that I talked about, the body has to go through these six transformations: birth, grow, produce some offsprings, stay for some time, and then dwindle and die. So these are transformations that cannot be stopped from this material nature. And a sober person realizes all of this, understands that he is soul, and works towards that seriously, pursues yoga path, and ultimately gets liberation and gives up this bodily existence within this material world, and he goes back. So this, I know it is very painful to live, to have the bear the loss of our grandparents or parents, and especially in this current time when this corona is affecting us, we're not able to even have the opportunity to see them, right? So difficult at this time. But understand that is the nature of this world. This nature we call Mother Nature, but acts very cruelly because Durga, Mother Durga is the nature of this creation, existence, material existence. She's the wife of Shiva, and she is like the in charge of this jail. This entire world is material existence is like a jail without walls. You don't have walls. Your own desires will uh, anchor you upon this. Will act. Your desires will anchor you to this bodily existence within this world, and they would stop you get out of this material world to enjoy in this world. That is the thing that keeps you in this world.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, so Mother Durga, she will not let any jailer, any inmate of the jail, to go out of this jail unless he is really completely transformed, right? Jail superintendent, will he give up any person unless he is ready to be part of society and live like a good citizen? He won't. So similarly, until we completely transform ourselves, we will have to continue our existence within this material world. So as we purify our heart through the practice of yoga, we will learn, understand the purpose of life better, and ultimately give up this temporary existence within this material world and go back to God.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Prabhuji.
Yeah, Hare Krishna. So thank you all. It's 6:35. Any other questions? We can still take.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna, Mataji.
I think I know the answer, but I still will go ahead and ask. So when we die, so when my soul goes, um, obviously, like my immediate family or my family members or whoever would feel that loss. But the soul will not be able to see their pain, right?
The soul leaves the body. I mean, sometimes it stays around for some time, actually, up to 10, 11 days, until the body is completely, at least until, that's why in our Sanatana Dharma culture, we actually burn the body so that soul understands, okay, my time is up here, and then completely leaves. It's given some kind of a, before it receives the next body, and so it sees actually the lamentation of the, sometimes somebody goes to higher planets or Vaikuntha immediately. It all depends. Garuda Purana explains all these details on how different living entities leave the body. What's the question, sorry?
Yeah, I just wanted to understand that once when the soul leaves, like where your immediate family members or family members will be feeling that loss, but will the soul be able to experience that the loss that your family members are seeing when you go from this world? So that was my.
So when we are, so at that time we are with the subtle body, very relieved actually. It's a very light existence. So in that, people are more sober in that existence with subtle body. They understand, okay, this lifetime is one flash of a existence within my, long duration of existence. And it depends on the individual's consciousness. If they're very much attached to the family, they might experience some pain also while watching their, relatives. But sometimes it may, the body is not, the person is not attached at all, so he might just, move on to the next body. Yeah.
Got it. Okay. Got it.
Yeah. Any other questions?
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Vishruti? Okay.
I have a doubt that, in your lecture, you told we elevate the soul to different chakras through meditation and chanting through mantras. How
Correct.
do we do that through mantras, Prabhuji?
How do we do that with mantras? Yes. So, I mean, there are multiple methods to purify. So ultimately, all the yoga paths, they are aimed at purifying the heart. You know? Chitta Suddhi. Chitta means consciousness. Consciousness is like a mirror. Right now, that mirror is covered with dust. If a mirror is covered with dust, can you see yourself, your face in that mirror? You cannot, right? So similarly, right now we are not able to experience our soul because of our consciousness that is covered by various anarthas, unwanted things like our greed, anger, envy, false prestige. All these things are covering us. So they're not letting us experience our true self. So through the process of yoga, we uncover the dust, and so we can see our true self. And the process is followed, through various methods. So there is Jnana Marg, there is Yoga Marg, and there is Bhakti Marg, primarily. So in the Jnana Marg, one is always pursuing what is truth behind everything, what is temporary, what is truth, and so he would uh, try to understand the reality behind everything, slowly uncover the truth through that process. It's called Jnana Marg. And then in the path of yoga, there is Ashtanga Yoga. So he performs various postures, and ultimately controls his breath, pranayama, asana, dhyana, dharana, samadhi. So through these various practices, a yogi elevates his chakras, consciousness from one chakra to higher chakra. So ultimately reaches his consciousness to the forehead, kundalini, raising kundalini, it's called. So that's one way. I mean, that's through the process of Ashtanga Yoga. So yogi meditates on the form of God within the mind. And through that process, he ultimately realizes, purifies his heart. Again, this is again a little bit mechanical, because you are depending on only your own strength to raise your consciousness. And then ultimately the Bhakti Yoga process, which completely depends on the power of God through the chanting of the name of God. So that's what we follow. We practice that every day. We chant the holy name of God every single day without miss. And in that process, we chant Hare Krishna Mahamantra. And mantra has the potency to purify consciousness. It's a high dose medicine. It's called. It's like it works, and it purifies your unwanted things from the mind. And slowly, over a period of time, it takes time. It's not going to happen overnight. It is any yoga. It takes time. Just like you have to fill our tummy. We study for 25 years. So imagine now this is going to solve the problems of life. So you have to steadily practice and perfect that process. The chanting also, anybody, if you chant, the mind runs around everywhere. So you have to expertly manage your mind in the process, and over a period of time perfect the process and achieve perfection. So when you do that, again, you purify your consciousness, and when you purify your consciousness, there is no need for you to come back to this world. So that's how it works. We'll discuss that very soon. In like couple of weeks, we'll discuss the process of meditation also. At that time, it becomes an arsenal for you. It becomes a tool in your toolkit to do practice on a daily basis.
Yes, Prabhuji. Thank you.
Yeah. Hare Krishna. Okay, so we'll end the class here. Thank you all for joining. Any questions, feel free to message me individually or in the group. Feel free, and we can discuss further. Okay. Thank you all for joining.
Prabhu, one more
Thank you, Prabhu.
question.
Thank
Oh
you,
yeah,
Prabhuji.
sure, Prabhu. Go ahead.
Prabhu, body is temporary and soul is eternal.
Yes, Prabhu.
Now we spend so much time and money and everything taking care of body. How one should identify the need of the soul and focus more on spending time and money and reaching the one which is more eternal and long lasting than the one which is temporary? And what is the responsibility of the soul? how much to take care of body and how much to spend? I know it's a little bit vague question, throwing things there.
Yeah, very good question. So in the beginning, we add spiritual life to our overall life slowly. Slowly, our life becomes completely spiritual over a period of time. It depends on our own understanding uh, of the spiritual life. As we make progress, everything becomes, our way of interacting with this world also becomes spiritual. So we realize slowly as we understand the importance of material life, and we start relating to this world in a better and better way. And life keeps on giving lessons for us. There will be challenges keep on coming at every stage of life, and they actually open up our as challenges come in life, we take shelter of spiritual life more and more seriously. That becomes the impetus over a period of time. I mean, just like for example, a drunkard is there. If he is suppose he loses money, or for whatever reasons, what happens to a drunkard at the time? He takes shelter of drinking. So similarly, as one learns and understands spiritual path better and better, as challenges come in life, you become more serious. So in one way, challenges of life would turn as trigger points or accelerators for spiritual life. So then we understand, oh wow, this life is like this in this world. It's going to be like that. Challenges are going to be there. See, imagine, right? We think that what's there for these big CEOs, or the big tech CEOs like Apple and Zuckerberg, all these guys. No, they're all summoned to. Recently, they were all summoned for questionnaire by the assembly, right? The parliament here. So they have to answer questions, and there'll be somebody who will be showing, right? All the time there'll be sewers, and they have to deal with all of them. So there will be challenges for everyone at their level. It's not easy. Life is not easy in this world. Keep on going through challenges. Just, and all these challenges, if you are spiritually inclined person, you would take the shelter of spiritual process, and that becomes an impetus to practice spiritual life more and more seriously. So that is the best way I feel. I mean, when you are really happy, you don't really think about spiritual life. That's another uh, problem in the middle world. But when you have real troubles in the middle world, that's when you really. I remember when I was in IIT, the assignments are getting too hard, and that's when I actually took up seriously spiritual life, because that became like a escape for me. Chanting for 20 minutes, it gave some relief, some kind of a boost to my grind of the day. And some people used to crib about the problems of the day, and assignments. We used to work late hours, and people are very much stressed out. But for me, my practice of chanting was actually helping at the time. So it's like that. We take shelter of what we are attached to or what we are dependent on. And fortunately, all of you, I mean, some people, when they are in distress, you see them taking their life out, and challenges come to everyone. One day you lose a lot of money, one day you lose very loved ones. And at that time should become a great trigger for our spiritual life to take it seriously. And that is like a test by God to turn your face towards Him. Because otherwise, what's the impetus for us to give up this world? We don't want to give up. We just, if everything is nice, all our relations eternally exist, this world won't be called as material world. It will be called Vaikunta. Yeah? Look at this world, right? Everybody is competitive here. Nobody, right? Apple doesn't want Facebook to succeed, right? For example, now Microsoft wants to start. TikTok is in trouble, and now these people are trying to consume. Yeah? Microsoft wants to take over.
Yeah. It's a lot of competition and everything.
Yeah. So the nature of this world is jiva se jiva, means one attacks the other. That's how it is at a bottom level or at the top level. only people with spiritual eye can see all this happening. I wonder, how nobody's worried how much suffering the TikTok CEO is suffering at this time. Trump is saying, okay, if you Microsoft, if you are buying, you have to pay some money to us, government. Saying that. No, these are like stealing and actually dividing among themselves what they want. So it's such a, world is a place
Full
of
of miseries, yes.
yeah. So it's like that. I mean, nobody is. Everyone acts in their self-interest. Nobody is exception. Everyone. But we have to come out of that. At least realize actually, understand purpose of life and look beyond what's temporary and what's
So,
of.
Prabhu, if people only have sufferings or miseries, then and then they can come to spiritual life, or there are other ways also people come to spiritual life.
There are 4 ways we'll learn in 4th chapter.
Yes.
There are 4 ways in which a jiva turns towards God. Ardho ardhardi jnani jnanisha bhartarshava. Ardho means one who wants lot of money, he takes shelter of God. Huh? Sorry, ardho means actually, yeah, ardho means one who is miserable. This is the main category of people who come to God. People who really see the miseries of this world. Everybody goes through miseries, but only a sober person sees that misery easily, and they see, okay, this is not a sane place for a gentleman.
Right.
Let me find out what's really this whole life is all about. That's when they turn to Gita, and that is ardho. And then ardhardi. Krishna only talks about who are the people who turn to him. Ardhardi means one who wants money or seeks name, fame in this world. They also seek God actually. You can see Reliance Ambani, he's becoming the richest now.
Yes.
So he's a very firm believer in God. He comes to our ISKCON. He always brings his children to, before his marriage, his children's marriage. He has a lot of faith in Krishna, for example, right? But he's more or less like Ardhardi, not a very spiritual inclined person, but so Ardhardi. And then one who is inquisitive. They want to know actually what is there in Gita. I want to know.
Yes.
What is soul, what is life, what is this material world, how this existence works. That is inquisitive. And then finally jignasu, jignasu, and then jnani. Jnani means one who is very intelligent. This person actually is looking for things beyond this material world. He's actually very a seeker already. We see many great sannyasis within ISKCON who are very jnani kind of people. They're wise men.
Yeah.
And Krishna himself says in the next verse that I love these jnanis the most. These are all people who are seeking after me, but I love the jnanis the most. He says that. But anyway, they're all great people because they're actually, when in misery, they're coming to the shelter of God. So that is a very commendable thing, Krishna says. Okay, so
Thank you, Prabhuji.
yeah, Haribol Prabhu, thank you. So we'll end the class here. Thank you all. I have to rush to somewhere. I'll end the class now. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Hare Krishna.